Get 1 month free. Only at Quartz. Bringing value. Home. Special conditions apply.
Mommy, remember you told me if I pass all my exams, you would buy me a brand new laptop computer, a cell phone, and a PlayStation 4? Well, here are the results.
Wow, son, you did great. But where can I find all these stuff at affordable prices?
Smart Electronics, Mommy. They have stuff for the entire family. They have washing machines, cell phones, tablets, refrigerators, TVs, blenders, irons, microwave ovens, Bluetooth speakers, and much, much more. And they are located at Port Zante opposite the food court.
Wow, but son, where did I get all these information?
My friend told me, and he also told me if you buy them somewhere else, they won't last.
Is that so?
Yes, Mommy, so I don't want you to buy them anywhere else but Smart Electronics.
Okay, son, get dressed. We're going down to Smart Electronics.
No need to go to St. Martin anymore. We have everything available right here in St. Kitts. And remember, we have only one store in St. Kitts, and we are located at Port Zante opposite the food court. Smart Electronics, way to live a smart life.
Water is life, 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 life. Water is life, 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 life. Do just one thing,
Every job come, make sure you check for leaks around your house every day. Every job come, when washing your teeth, don't let the water run away. Come save the water, preserve the water right now. Whenever you're taking your shower, every job come. Make saving the water, your business every hour. The water, the water, the water, the water right now. It's up to me and you, and you and you and you. The water right now.
do just one thing.
A pleasant good morning to all our listeners in Radioland and those of you in tune to us via YouTube and Facebook. Welcome to the third edition of our radio show, The Waterline. The Waterline is a radio program brought to you by the St. Kitts Water Services Department. I am Shireen Awana, your host for today, taking you through the show every second and fourth Wednesday of each month. For today's show, we continue on our topic from our previous show, where we spoke of World Water Day and the significance as well as the theme. So again, in studio with me today, I have...
Hi, good morning to everyone. My name is Cromwell Williams and I'm the Manager, Water Engineer.
And good morning, my name is Malcolm Herbert. I'm the Clerk of Works.
For the benefit of those listeners joining our program for the first time, remind us of the theme for this year's celebration.
Okay, so the 22nd of March every year is celebrated as World Water Day. And every year there is a different theme, and this year the theme is groundwater, making the invisible visible. World Water Day was started way back in 1992. It was a declaration by the United Nations General Assembly that the 22nd of March each year we would pause to think of the importance of water. I mean, we should think of the importance of water every day. So the purpose of World Water Day is to promote public awareness. Public awareness through the publication and diffusion of documentaries and the organization of conferences, roundtables, expositions, etc. And so for the past 20 or so years, the Water Services Department has organized a week of activities around this day, the 22nd of March, when we bring to bring on the front burner water and the issues concerning water. Shall I go into some of the activities?
Sure, you may speak on the activities, certainly.
Okay. All right, so this year, as we move towards that time, we have some activities which we at the Water Services Department have put together, and if I can just mention some of them. We have organized a water filtration competition amongst the primary schools, and I think the planning for that is going well as we speak. We also have for the staff, we have a paint by number social activity, and then as we move closer to the actual opening of the week on Saturday the 19th, usually in the evening around 8 p.m. we will have the address by the Honorable Minister with responsibility for water, who is the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Sean K. Richards. So he will present his address to commemorate World Water Day on that Saturday evening. On the Sunday, of course, we go to church, and we will be fellowshipping with the People's Evangelistic Center at Needsmas. That's on Sunday morning at around 9:30 a.m. Then on the actual day, Tuesday the 22nd, we have our Customer Appreciation Day and Open Day. So you don't want to miss that day. That is a time for you to come visit us, whether it is to pay your bill or whatever other customer service you need. And we will have, I'm sure we'll have something to treat your palate. And we will also have at our main office at Needsmas a display showing you some of the work that we do, some of the infrastructure that is usually on the ground and out of sight, but we will definitely have some of it on display so that you can get an appreciation as to what goes into and behind the scenes in making water available to you at your tap. And we will have a few other activities as the week progresses, including football match between the St. Kitts Water Department and the Nevis Water Department, and so on. We'll also be giving back to our customers. We will have a raffle. I think to be eligible, we will select customers who based on your usage of water has been very conservative, because at the water department, if it's one message we have, it's conservation, conservation, conservation.
Yes.
Sounds good, Mr. Williams. And I know it might be a little bit too late, but I imagine that some of our listeners are probably thinking, how can I scale back on my water usage? Now, last week we touched on what groundwater is, and Mr. Herbert detailed the process of what it takes to get water to the tap in our homes and in our business places. But many persons are of the opinion that water should be free. In their mind, it's a natural resource. To some who haven't really, become au fait with water, they think that it's a limitless resource. So what do you have to say to those persons?
Okay, water is a natural resource. All of the water that we use in St. Kitts for the public water supply comes from rain. We want to always underscore that. All of the water that we use in the public supply in St. Kitts comes from rain. There are one or two private entities that use desalinated water, which is turning seawater, run it through a plant, a process called reverse osmosis, where you take out all of the salt and so on, and you get fresh water from seawater. And I think the Marriott or the company that provides Marriott has a plant, and the other hotel on the Southeast Peninsula, Park Hyatt, also have such a plant. But for us, the domestic and other users in St. Kitts, the public supply is totally from rainwater. So the question of the cost of water and should it be free? Yes, it's a public supply. Yes, it is a natural resource, comes from rain. But we all must appreciate, of course, that the process of capturing the water, whether we capture it from a well or we capture it from a spring or a river in the hills, in the mountain, the process of piping that water and treating that water and bringing it to your tap involves quite a lot of work. And so because of that, I believe that the principle is that there should be cost recovery, meaning that the customers that benefit from that service should pay for the cost of providing that service. So it's not ever about making a profit, but there should be cost recovery.
And I think you have said quite rightly that it is not limitless. That needs to be underscored. And granted that water is not limited, I think the literature has said that groundwater is actually being overused in many areas, where more water is being abstracted from the aquifers than is being recharged by rain. What are some of the implications?
Well, as we all know, we're in an era of global warming. So climate change, we might have been normally getting a certain amount of rain throughout the year. At times you have a decrease in that. You have drought, and these are things that directly affect the our groundwater supply. We have in each of our wells, we have a specific amount that you're supposed to take off at any one time in order to maintain a balance between the seawater, that's the fresh water is lying upon. So you have to be very careful with how you take off that water to give the well chance to replenish itself, so to speak. So by doing this, we have to maintain what we call that safe yield. So we have the well to last as long as possible. That is basically the main reason behind controlling and limiting the amount of water we take away from the well.
So does the customers play a role in this as well?
Definitely, because as you would realize, as the country develops, more people come into play, more houses and so on, the demand increase, so we have to try and meet that demand. But unfortunately, if everybody just use the water, as I will use a local term, willy-wally, we will actually end up running out of water to keep people, as everyone will like, 24/7 supply. So the customers definitely have a role to play in it, and this ties back into your first question, which Mr. Williams was speaking of. I think if there is no charge to the water supply to the customers, they won't really care. So apart from paying the workers, getting money, the government getting money to pay the workers to maintain this resource, it also put something for the customers to think about, because the more water they use, the more money they have to spend.
Thank you. Stemming off of the cost factor, the water itself, the quality of the water, does pollution in St. Kitts factor into our water quality in any way? Are we affected by pollution?
That's a very good question. Yes, the short answer is yes. Because we get 2/3 or more of our water now from underground, our groundwater, as the theme for this year says, groundwater, making the invisible visible. So beneath our feet, practically, literally, is water. It's the aquifers that we have on St. Kitts. And what you have is, when rain falls, even though it don't fall sometime on the lowland, in the mountains mainly, more rain falls in the mountain, because rain depends on the shape of the island. And because St. Kitts has a mountainous interior, a lot of rain falls on the interior of the island, in the mountains. That water soaks into the ground. It's important that we understand that we're so blessed in St. Kitts in terms of natural resource and water, and also the geology, the type of rocks structure that we have. So St. Kitts is basically like a big sponge. The water falls, and just as the sponge soaks up water, a lot of that water soaks into the ground. And before the early 70s, 1970s, when we started our intensive well drilling, most of that water, literally all of that water, will gradually, as it soaks into the ground, will gradually flow towards the sea, and it discharges under the sea. So what we do when we drill wells, groundwater, when we drill the wells, is we're intercepting that flow of groundwater that flows from the highlands on the ground out to the sea. So when we dig a well 100, 200, 300 or so feet, we're basically intercepting that water that is flowing on the ground, and we're able to pump that water out. If it's a small well, we might get a well that gives us maybe 50 gallons a minute, or we might get a well that gives us 100, 200. We have wells as large as 400 gallons per minute. Now that is like a river, really. So we the question now, as you raised, Sharina, is water quality, is pollution. And so because we have groundwater, we have to be careful how we discharge of stuff, from all chemicals. We're particularly concerned about things like used oil from mechanic shops and so on. That is very important. We would have also been concerned, even when we had the sugar cane and some of the chemicals that they use, the farmers especially, the chemicals that they use, the fertilizers and the pesticides and so on. We have to be all very careful how we use and dispose of any and all types of chemicals in St. Kitts, because it may take a very long time, but it can eventually, just as the water falls on the ground and it eventually makes its way down to the water table, the same way the chemicals that you dispose of will eventually make their way down to the water table. And so for that reason, we have to be very careful as to how we deal with potential of polluting our groundwater.
Okay, Mr. Williams, I think a lot can be said about pollution, and I think that's a topic in and of itself in terms of water quality. I'm sure we'll be back to talk about that in another show. But as usual, I am sure that our keen listeners are anticipating an opportunity to weigh in on the conversation. Do we have any callers on the line? Well, we don't have any callers on the line, so not at the moment. So at this time, Mr. Williams, I'll give you the opportunity to tell us a bit more about, continue on the conversation about water quality, the pollution issue, any other aspects that would affect. Well, we seem to have a caller on the line, so we'll take the caller. Caller, you're on the water line.
Good morning, Mr. Williams and company.
Good morning.
Yeah, Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir. Morning.
I got maybe 2 questions and a comment, quick. When our development, housing, etc., are mainly coastal, and then the water coming down from percolating to after percolating to the mountain and come down to the aquifer, wherever, to go into the sea, using your own words. Is it a problem to drill wells around the coastline? Because I guess you'll have to drill above to get away from pollution. And one of my things is that, I'm going to ask you this, I don't know if you ever thought about it. These people who run funeral homes, when they do whatever they do there, they refer to as, after doing what they're doing, in there, called Martrui water. And I understand from a very reliable source that that water there has some kind of chemicals in it that would be so dangerous to health, to human health. So where they are located and where they dispose of the Martrui water should be a great concern. Now, I'm not alarming anybody. I know of it a long time ago. And lastly, repeating a question, are you really moving on about getting the authorities around here to change the building code so that help to ease pressure from the water supply, that you are in control of that? You could have cisterns in the building of homes. Just let me comment a little bit. I see it done in the Virgin Islands, quite a lot. Quite a lot. Nevis people used to do it long time, but then they used to go under the house. They used to build a cistern in the yard that catch the water from the house roof. But in the Virgin Islands, that's where a site for us, where the water goes under the house. A few people here have them, but I think that is something we need to look at, because being a find no more river, nowhere in St. Kitts. I don't know if we can be lucky that some of the springs would start, just start magically to give a higher yield. I'll stop here for now.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, you respond?
Okay, so quickly, he asked about drilling at or close to the coastline. Now, based on the science of the extracting of groundwater or drilling of wells, you cannot drill too close to the coastline, or else you will run the risk of pulling in saline or brackish or salty water, because it's important that you understand that the fresh water that I mentioned that goes into the ground when rain falls, as the gentleman used the right term, percolates into the ground when rain falls, that fresh water is floating on salt water. So it's like the sea continues under the island. Okay, so the fresh water floats on the salt water. The closer you get to the coastline, the thinner that layer of fresh water that we can extract is. And so that is why we don't go too close to the coastline.
Okay, Mr. Williams, I think we have another caller on the line. We're going to get back to the remaining questions. Caller, you're on the water line.
And good morning to you, Sharina.
Good morning.
And how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, I'm here listening to the program. Good morning to the rest of the panel.
Morning.
Good morning. Yeah? It's a great program. It's very educational. I'm so glad that you all are touching this topic, because a lot of us, even before we had this water issue, we used to just take water for granted. So I'm glad that you all are able to show people what goes into behind the scenes. We just have this tendency, I guess, because of the luxury we have the water every day, so we just take a lot of things for granted. And sometimes even persons to pay the bill is a big problem. And the water, for me personally, we get in the water free in terms of on a regular basis, and just to pay the water bill, it's not a big bill, but it's amazing how sometimes some persons can allow their bills to get up. So maybe the government is to blame from a certain level. How come a person can have bill for 2,000 and those kind of prices? So then it creates a lot of problems for those who are paying on a regular basis. But my question to you all in relation to the water and what is going on, would you say the climate change or the climate issue that we have anything to do with the water at present? That is my question. And I just want to ask you all to continue doing the great job that you all are doing, because water is life. So I'm really impressed with the way you all are going, and just pray and hope that persons can listen and just follow what you all are instructing us to do. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you to caller.
You're welcome.
Mr. Williams, if there are any more callers on the line, we have another caller. We'll take the caller. Caller, welcome to the water line.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, question. Would the government, now that we're having less rainfall as in the past, would the government ever consider desalination at some point? That's my question. Thank you. I'll listen off here.
Thank you, caller. Do we have any other callers on the line? Okay.
If I can try to answer the other questions. The issue of the funeral home or mortuary water that the gentleman spoke of, not too familiar with it, but I would think that you definitely would not want that to come into contact with your water source, whether it is a surface water source or it is an underground water source. So that is something that we need to, again, we need to be conscious of how we are disposing of anything and everything, basically, in relation to the possibility of polluting our groundwater. The issue of cisterns, yes, we are moving closer to having that become basically mandatory in St. Kitts, that new construction or maybe new construction of a certain size have a cistern or provisions for water storage or cistern. It is something that it is just inevitable, and we are moving forward with that. Climate change, I believe that climate change is something that is real. We may not necessarily be feeling the impacts today, but we have to think long term when it comes to water and the sustainability of water. So we have to make decisions today that take into consideration, you know, the potential long-term changes that may happen in the climate, such as we may have more or longer or more severe dry spells or drought. And again, that is why maybe if you're building, you should really consider water storage as part of your construction. Desalination is inevitable. As I've indicated before, private entities, the Marriott, when the hotel first started, the desalination plant was not part of the plan. After it was recognized that we just could not sustain that facility, then the desalination plant was put in. And so it is just a matter of time when we have to turn to desalination to supplement and to augment the public water supply. The delay, and the reason why we would want to delay it as long as possible, is because it is costly, and it will always be costly, because a desalination plant uses a lot of electricity, and St. Kitts does not have oil. We import oil, and so our electricity costs will always be high, and hence if we are producing water using a process of desalination that uses a lot of electricity, then naturally the cost of producing that water will also be high.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Okay, sure, Mr. Herbert.
Okay. Just to add, going back to the water quality, for something that is general throughout the island, to every time a house is built, there is also a septic and a soakaway that is built with that house. Special attention must be given to the construction of these two, because there is an area that is dug out into the ground, so you're already going into the ground, so you're starting from below ground, and any kind of leakage or cracks or anything like that you have in the septic, or any kind of wrong materials, liquid going into the soakaway, gonna have a direct impact on the quality of water sooner.
So this all ties back to the significance of our theme, groundwater. And so while, as the theme suggests, that groundwater is invisible, we are attempting to make it visible, make you realize the seriousness, the important role that groundwater plays in our everyday life. And so we remind you that groundwater may be out of sight, but it should not be out of mind. As we close, we remind you, you can save yourself the hassle of finding parking and standing in long queues by paying your water bill online. And you can do that via our website, www.water.gov.kn. Now, Mr. Williams, before we wrap up, I know that when online payment was rolled out, e-billing was promised to come shortly after. Where are we with that?
Okay, so we do have, as of probably over a year ago now, the option where you can receive your water bill electronically. And we know that the need for that would have been escalated due to the COVID pandemic, where, because they couldn't congregate, everyone were forced to do as much transactions as possible online. So we do offer the option where you can get your bill electronically. You can still continue to get the paper bill, but if you want to get your bill instantly and you want to have it with you on your phone wherever you go, you can get your bill electronically. You can go on our website www.water.gov.kn and you can sign up. There's a simple form there that you can sign up to receive your bill electronically. I think you just have to put in maybe your name, your email, and perhaps your account number, and you send that to us and you can get your bill electronically. And we really want to encourage everyone to take this route, for your own convenience, and also it would help us to serve you better in that regard.
Also, we remind you that for inquiries, you can contact us at 467-1005 or 467-1447, or you can email us at water.services@gov.km. As we close, I leave you with our water conservation tip for today. Use a glass or maybe two to brush your teeth, not a continuously running pipe. We want to thank all our listeners for choosing to join us this morning on the Waterline. Thanks to those of you who called and engaged us in meaningful discourse. Whether it was a question, a complaint, we appreciate you for joining us. Thank you for propelling us to be the best water service provider that we can be. Join us again on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month. As we sign off, we hope that you would be with us for our next edition of the Waterline on Wednesday, March 23rd.
Water is life, 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 life. Water is life, 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 life. Do just one thing,
Every job come, make sure you check for leaks around your house every day. Every job come, when brushing your teeth, don't let the water run away. Come stay